Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As usual, I will give you a brief presentation together with Willy van Riet, and then we will take your questions. Let me summarize the first half of the year. Revenues were stable. Organic development, that is adjusted for FX and one-off effects, plus 1%, a slightly positive development. Overall stable. Operating EBITDA down by 1% from the previous year. But again, if you adjust that for high FX effects, which we saw this year, and also for the one-off effect last year from non-core real estate sales, which were higher than this year, we report plus 9% in the organic development. The net result increased from 6 million to 27 million. Again, very satisfactory, and gross cash flow up by 10%. So overall, in the first half of the year, Wienerberger was well able to cope with developments in the various regions, including the volatility in the wake of the referendum in England. Let's take a look at the individual divisions. Clay Building Materials Europe, we see higher volumes at stable average prices. Eastern Europe has developed very well. In Western Europe, a slight downturn because of the situation in England. Average prices were increased throughout the segment in some areas. So overall, this is stable. We owe this to a certain extent to our repositioning with infill bricks, higher value bricks, particularly in Germany. That was a very satisfactory development. In Northern Europe, in Pipes and Pavers Europe, we can see a satisfactory development in the Nordic countries, including Finland. Also in Denmark and Austria, the development was satisfactory. The situation is more difficult in Eastern Europe because public sector tendering activities and capital expenditure are down. EU funding in Poland has not come in yet. Similar situation in Romania. In Poland, the change of government is still going on, and it will be a while before the situation stabilizes. The same holds for Romania, where anti-corruption measures brought about considerable instability, and it will take some time for the situation to stabilize again. Another thing that needs to be mentioned in the context of our pipe business, in our international pipe business, that is plastic pipes for the oil and gas industry and for major energy projects, we've had fewer orders this year, so a certain decline was noticeable there. North America saw a very positive development. New residential construction developed very well and was gaining momentum. A 37% organic growth in North America. When you look at the previous year's figures, you have to bear in mind that last year we had considerable one-off effects from the sale of real estate, which we don't have this year. And the second thing is we closed down a small plant in Tennessee, which cost us approximately 3 million. So the market development is very positive. The figures speak for themselves. Let me move on to the second quarter. development of revenues was stable. The same holds for EBITDA. Here, too, we report organic growth. Let me make one point about the second quarter. We had a very wet June. This is not an excuse, but for construction activities, particularly in Western Europe, including Germany and France, as well as other Western European markets, this meant that activities were slowed down, particularly in our roof business. Apart from that, the trends I mentioned also hold for the second quarter. Now, let me hand over to Willy. Good morning to all of you. Let me show you the income statement for the first half of 2016. Revenues, 0% increase, plus 1% when looked at organically, but a good performance in the first half of the year. The margin is relatively stable. Same holds for EBITDA. Last year, we had income from real estate sales in the amount of 15 million. This year, it's only 4 million, so that makes a difference. And we had 5 million translation difference, negative FX effects in the first half of 2016. Half of that accounted for by the British pound, and the rest accounted for by Eastern European currencies and the Norwegian crown. That too needs to be mentioned. And we also saw that except for the dollar, all other currencies weakened relative to the euro. So that was a negative environment for us. Nevertheless, we report an operating EBITDA margin of 12.1%, depreciation approximately 100 million. That is slightly less than the previous year. Operating EBIT, the same as last year. No impairment charges to assets. Last year, we booked a minor impairment on assets in Russia. This is no longer necessary this year. And therefore, no impairment charges this year. EBIT, therefore, increased by 16% to 79 million from 68 million the previous year. We also see a turnaround in the financial result. This is partly due to the low net debt, the low interest rates, better utilization of our credit line. We used to have a lot of cash on the balance sheet in the past. We still have cash on the balance sheet, but the negative carry has gone down. And as you will be seeing later on, we use our credit lines to finance our working capital. There's also been a positive development in the dividends we get from our subsidiaries. We got 3 million more. 5 million comes from interest rates, and the financial result is considerably improved compared with the previous year. Our profit before tax is 64 million compared with 39 million the year before. Income taxes are similar to the previous year. This is due to our earnings strength in certain countries. In Eastern Europe, we have a low tax rate, and our net result after the hybrid coupon and after minorities is 27.1 million compared with 6 million the year before, and earnings per share increased accordingly. Revenues showed a stable development. Development of volumes is stable at 0%. But later on, when we are going to look at the segments individually, we will see an increase in clay building materials and a decline in pipes and pavers. That ends up at zero net. A strong price development, plus 1%. And this more than covered cost inflation. Cost inflation for the full year is estimated to be 1.1%. Of course, with our margins, we cover more. 1% through the products and the positioning in our markets in a low inflation environment where it's difficult to obtain higher prices. The FX effect, almost 30 million on revenues and EBITDA, and this is why revenues overall are more or less at the same level as the previous year. A breakdown of results by segment. Western European business is still strong, and as you will be seeing later on, Eastern Europe is coming back and contributing to the results, particularly through housing construction activities. Pipes and pavers, stable or slightly declining in the first half of the year. In our pipe business, in Eastern Europe, you can see the impact of diminished activities on the part of the public sector. Tendering activity is low in Eastern Europe. In North America, it says -47, but you have to bear in mind that last year, in June, we generated income in the amount of 12.5 million through a real estate project in the first half of the year. This year, we closed down a plant which cost us 2.9 million in EBITDA, and if you adjust for that, you will see an increase in operating EBITDA by 36%. So these are the real figures. A similar picture when you look at the EBITDA margin. The wall segment is recovering. We are aiming at approximately 20% profitability, so we're still far from that. But step by step, with our Eastern European business and our German business, we are moving in the right direction. The roof business is at 20%. It has recovered considerably. That is due not least to the integration of Tondach. Facade business at the previous year's level, but again, when you adjust that for one-off effects in North America. Pavers slightly down. This is due mainly to Semmelrock because of a shrinking order book in the first half of the year, and pipes are at 11%. The cash flow has increased by 13 million, gross cash flow, due to seasonal effects. We have 195 million in working capital, less than last year. So 195 million cash out. Normal capex, the same as last year. Again, you have to bear in mind the uncertainty in the market. Disinvestments, this is cash which we generate through sales. So we have a negative free cash flow of -90 million, but 32 million less than the previous year. Because of the working capital, cash flow was weak in the first half of the year, but we have a strong inflow of net cash in the second half of the year. Growth investments, 23.6 million. Heimo is going to tell you more about that. And in our guidance for this year, we mentioned approximately 40 million, so the 23 million are part of that. When you look at the dividend and the hybrid coupon, we did pay a higher dividend on the result of 2015 because we saw that cash flow was increasing, so we were able to pay out a higher dividend. And the hybrid coupon, you will remember that in 2014, the big 500 million hybrid was split into two. One part was shifted to 2021, and we paid the coupon on that already, which had a positive impact on the cash flow of 2015. We don't have that anymore, so these effects are reflected in these figures. Our net cash outflow is due entirely to working capital, so that's going to turn around in the second half of the year. Our development of net debt, gross cash flow, cash inflow, and shown here even better if you compare June with the end of the year. The change is due entirely to working capital. And when you look at the figures for the 30th of June 2015, you can really see the significant increase last year and this year through optimization measures and through better performance. So we have a strong equity ratio and a very low gearing. When you look at our term structure, it's very well balanced. We have enough cash, a cash balance. We have enough credit lines available up to 2019. Here you can see the drawn credit lines up to 2019. But that's only for working capital on a one-to-one basis, increased by, in the drawn credit lines, by 199 million. Working capital is 195 million. We can call our hybrid or part of the hybrid next year. And in due time, we're going to communicate our decision. But we have made provisions for that, and our balance sheet is certainly strong enough for that. The treasury ratios: net debt to operating EBITDA 1.9, which is below our target of 2 times, which is the target for the end of the year. So we are well on track. We are certainly below the covenants, the bank covenants, and we have a sufficient leeway there and a buffer for the further development of the group. I move over to Heimo now.
Let's take a look at the individual segments. Clay building materials, Western Europe. As you can see, revenues were stable, and EBITDA also shows a stable situation. When we look at the details, though, we can see that as a result of the referendum in the United Kingdom, there was a slight decline in the new housing market. There was also destocking in the supply chain in the first half of this year, and also there were the FX effects, particularly the devaluation of the British pound. So what we see is that based on the activities in Western Europe, the positive market environment in the Netherlands and also in Germany, we could compensate for that. I would also point out that we should bear in mind that the business in Belgium, which is the biggest business sector for Wienerberger, also showed a muted demand. And this is something that the other countries had to make up for. When you look at revenues, you can see that this actually accounts for the biggest part. Central and Eastern Europe. Here we have a positive development from Poland all the way to Bulgaria. 1 and 2 family houses are our core business, both when it comes to roof tiles and bricks. So this is a very positive development in the first half of the year, also due to the fact of the better capacity or utilization due to increased demands. There are also some positive signs in Austria, the Czech Republic, which will mean another positive contribution in the future. The only country where there is still a decline is Russia. But again, over recent weeks and months, we have seen that there is some sort of stabilization. So we expect to have more stability on a low level, of course. So when looking at the new housing market, we find that there's increasing dynamism. Pipes and pavers, Western Europe. Here we have the strong Nordic markets. The Netherlands are also strong, and there's also the project business from the Netherlands and Norway. And we had to compensate for the decline in the project business. EBITDA minus 2%. This shows that we have good cost management and also very favorable prices. Ceramic pipes, Keramik Steinzeug, leading company in Europe with regard to wastewater pipes, a decline in Poland, in Romania, countries that are confronted with the problem of decline in public tenders. So this meant a decrease in revenue and earnings. Eastern Europe, Central Europe, plus pavers, Semmelrock. Here we see a clear decline in revenues and EBITDA. As I mentioned, there is a lack of public tenders, and also Semmelrock in Central and Eastern Europe and in Poland is confronted with keen competition. And this, of course, is reflected in profitability. So, once EU funding is available again in the second or third framework program up to 2020, this will mean market improvement. We at Wienerberger do not expect that this is going to happen in 2016. We don't see any new incentives this year. North America, as Willy already pointed out, we have a very good operating performance in all segments or areas. Canada, United States operating increased 26%. So we are very optimistic also regarding prices. Average prices are developing in the right direction. So a very good business also in the facade segment. Pipes, we have one pipe plant in Kansas. Good volume growth, but prices are under great pressure from our competitors. So here we had a decrease in earnings. Let's move on to the outlook for 2016. We will remain strong in our core segments, that is innovation. We will continue to innovate our product range and offer system solutions. You can see that our margins have improved. Then another important point, operational excellence. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, we have improved our cost situation in a sustainable manner. Costs have been reduced, and this, of course, is very helpful in times where we not only have tailwind, but also a certain amount of headwind. And we will continue to work on that in the coming years. We are going to complete the sale of non-operating assets program. So we will improve our EBITDA and cash flow. So this program has been completed. This does not mean, however, that we might not develop and sell additional real estate property in the coming years. Regarding growth projects, we focused on segments where we want to achieve growth. Let me briefly explain. We took over a competitor in the Helsinki region, a wastewater pipe supplier. This strengthens and complements our portfolio. In the southwest of Poland, we took over clay block plant, and we also took over a brick manufacturing plant in Romania. And we will increase our capacity there. So in the coming months, we will continue to focus on the implementation of these growth projects, which will result in additional payback and cash flow. Semmelrock Ost, our new plant at Bad Fischau, south of Vienna, will become operational before the end of the summer, so we can supply the market starting in autumn. This again will have a positive impact. Let's now take a look at the map for residential construction, new housing, North America and Europe. Have there been any changes? The answer is yes. In America, the situation remained more or less stable, a plus of 10%. You can see the 4 regions where we are active. That includes the United States and Canada. I cannot guarantee what the final result is going to be, but for this year, it looks like a very good upward trend, which we expect to continue. Now, let's take a look at Europe. You can see 40% of revenues come from the countries like Belgium, the Netherlands, France, and the United Kingdom. So this is a very strong and important region for Wienerberger. But there are trends that are less positive. Let me mention England. You will remember that at the beginning of the year, we had positive results. Now we have negative results. Well, this is due to the referendum, which meant that housing or residential construction, of course, showed a decline. What is the situation right now? Actual trading right now is at the same level as in July of last year, which means that the British have been able to cope with the referendum, to live with it. We are positive because, first of all, the British Prime Minister has recognized the need of promoting residential construction in the UK, and there is an actual demand. And we can assume that this will also provide positive impulses for the labor market. So Our activities in Great Britain are in line with this. We have plants that supply the southern part of England. Also, we can have supplies from continental Europe. So whenever there's a decline, we reduce the utilization of our plants in the Netherlands and Belgium, but there will be no long-term shutdowns. So basically, you can see that in these regions, Belgium and England, we are confronted with headwind. The Netherlands, at the beginning of the year, there was a very strong positive trend. This has decreased somewhat, which is partly due to the situation in the UK. But the development on the local market is positive. We are happy to see that the German market, the construction of 1- and 2-family houses, which was slow at the beginning because there was a lot of urban development in Germany. But now we find that in this segment, which is very important for us, there is an upward trend. And we have positive growth once again. And we are very happy about that. Central and Eastern Europe, here we have high growth rates. This region contributes 30% to our revenues. In Hungary, in Romania, and in Poland, we also have volume growth, and our margins have improved as a result of higher utilization. So residential construction, new housing, a very sound and solid picture, with the exception of Switzerland, Belgium, and the UK. The renovation market, this applies particularly to our roof business. Why is there a decline, something like 3%, in the markets that are relevant for us? One of the reasons is that lower energy prices, of course, helps us reduce costs. On the other hand, there is less intention to start thermal renovation. Usually it's the roof that is being renovated first. But because of low energy costs and prices, there has been a decline. And secondly, because of public budget constraints in France, in Germany, also in the Benelux countries, less renovation is actually taking place. We expect that this is going to stay with us for a while, but we expect that in the future there will be another increase in Belgium. The government has started providing incentives for new housing and roof renovation in order to improve the housing situation. A lot of our products in the roof sector also go into monument protection, and because of budgetary constraints, there are delays in this sector again. Development by division, we will continue to see high performance in Eastern Europe, positive development in Germany and France, clay blocks, in particular a positive market environment in the Netherlands. There's higher uncertainty in Great Britain. This is something which we have to live with, but this is not actually disturbing FX effects. This is something we can cope with. So the operating result is very positive, and this also holds true for prices. Of course, this is something that we will look at. If necessary, we will make the necessary production adjustments and manage working capital accordingly. If we have higher idle capacity costs, we will be able to compensate for that by additional energy cost savings. We have lower energy prices or costs. You will remember at the beginning we had some 6 million decrease. Now it's going to be 7 million because of lower energy costs. So altogether it'll be more than 10 million, which we can use in order to make structural adjustments if necessary. North America shows a very positive trend, which is going to continue during the rest of the year. In the core markets, Austria, the Netherlands, and the Nordic countries, we have a solid market development in the pipe segment. I've already mentioned that in Central and Eastern Europe there has been a decline of public tenders. This is going to continue for the remainder of the year, and international project will not see significant increase before the end of the year. And this also applies to ceramic pipes and concrete pavers, particularly in Poland. Here we will have to take cost measures, no shutdown of plants, but further optimization and focus on cost reduction. What about the outlook? Despite all these effects that I've described, we still think we can reach an operating group EBITDA of 405 million. So we are moving in the right direction. We will be able to achieve the 15 million as a result of the sale of non-operating assets. The FX effects, well, here there were developments that we couldn't anticipate. When you look at the results, at the moment we stand at 5 million, and we expect that the total effects will be 10 million for the year 2016. This is something you have to bear in mind. So FX effects will probably amount to minus 10 million. Price increases, again, you can see that we have been able to achieve a 1% increase, and this covers cost inflation. Depreciation, net interest result, working capital, normal capex and growth capex, there have been no changes. We expect that we will be able to implement the necessary projects if necessary. If not, of course, we are not going to implement these projects. So basically, the two of us can say that despite the volatility in some of the markets, we have very good operating results. Having said this, I'd like to thank you for your attention. Willi and myself, of course, are available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? A question regarding foreign exchange. Can you quantify the FX effect on EBITDA for the second quarter? So you said it's a 10 million effect on EBITDA for the full year. In the first half of the year, it's 5.4 million. How much of that is accounted for by the second quarter? Well, let me answer the question. It's 3 million, most of it accounted for by the British pound. And what is the basis for your assumption of 10 million for the full year? Exchange rates in June. This is the basis for the 10 million. As regards the market itself, capacity adjustments mainly consist in reducing your exports from the Benelux countries to the UK. Yes, so capacity adjustments in the Benelux countries and the UK. What's the order of magnitude? Now we're working on the shift models. It will be a couple of percentage points in capacity utilization in England. We used to work at full capacity. Now we are reducing that by 5 to 10%. We're not talking about plant closures. It's only adjustments in production. Now we also have our inventories well under control, and we can easily step up production again because we have our people working there, and as soon as things improve, we can step up production. UK used to be one of the better markets in recent years, also in terms of prices. So what are your expectations? Pressure on prices will go up? No, we don't think so, because the British market is a very stable market on the supply side. And as you know, all the companies operating there are exchange listed. And they don't see a need for exercising pressure because they're all concerned to the same extent. And when you look at the map for France, is that the risk of contagion from the Brexit, France and the Benelux countries? Well, France is a very specific situation this year in particular. You shouldn't underestimate. Well, I'm not trying to find excuses, but the situation around the soccer Euro Championship, construction was down during June. Then there were strikes in France. So it wasn't an easy first half of the year, and it had an impact on construction activities. And in the Netherlands, well, it may be a sort of contagion effect. Because there are close links between the Netherlands, between the Dutch market and the British market. Finally, a question about Romania and Bulgaria. There seems to be a trend to the contrary between the two countries. Romania is improving, Bulgaria not as strong as it was at the beginning of the year. Any specific factors for that? Well, Poland has also improved, Germany has improved, so you seem to be forgetting a couple of markets where things improved considerably. So the environment is getting better also in Eastern Europe. Well, as to your specific market, Romania is much, much more important for us than Bulgaria. The weight of the brick market in Romania is much greater. So looking at our market presence there, Bulgaria is quite satisfactory. And Romania, the more important market for us, is gaining in momentum. A question about acquisitions. Can you quantify the effect on revenues and EBITDA in the second half of the year? And do you expect integration costs? Well, effect on revenues will be less than 1%. It's smaller acquisitions, really. And the contribution to EBITDA will also be lower than 1%, around 1 million probably. It's smaller things which are yet to be integrated. We don't expect additional costs, and the effects will be felt in 2017 and not now. We have also built a new plant in Austria, a paver plant, and the results will come in next year because the plant is only being started up. But the first effects will be visible in the second half of the year, but they will be minimal. Thank you. A question regarding the brick market as a whole. What are your expectations? Do you see any substitution effects from wood or concrete? We hear so much about wood construction. Well, thank you. We are observing the situation very, very carefully, not only a quarter by quarter, but also on a longer term basis over the decade. Now, let me tell you one thing. Let's start with clay blocks. We are gaining market shares in France in single and two-family house construction. We're gaining market shares in Germany because we manufacture and sell infill bricks there. We have double-digit growth rates, not only in Bavaria, but also in other regions of Germany. Home builders and investors tend to favor a durable product in order to avoid the need for additional thermal insulation. So I'd rather speak of a renaissance of the brick. We see a strong development in bricks in Hungary. We're making progress also in multi-story construction. The biggest construction site is at Seestadt Aspern in Vienna. And among architects, we see a trend to return to time-tested building materials. Wood construction is not a cause of concern for us. As regards concrete, of course, in multi-story construction, concrete has been gaining market shares, and we have to come up with intelligent, smart solutions to regain market shares. But it's going to be difficult. I have no illusions about that. We're not going to grow with brick in city markets like London and Paris, but in those regions where we are already well established, we are gaining market shares. When you compare the prices between brick and concrete, what's the situation? Now, when you build a single-family house, the cost advantage of bricks because of bricks have an advantage because for a concrete building you need additional insulation, and when you assume a life cycle of 50 years, that would be a fair assumption. You have to replace your thermal insulation once in a concrete building, and the brick building will have a cost advantage of 30% because maintenance costs are lower. You did advertise for single-family houses in the media. Well, it's not us who's doing that, but it's the master builders. And the campaign was going quite well. We tried to position ourselves vis-à-vis the prefab house. So it's going quite well, and it gives clients a reference base for their costs. But there is another topic which I'd like to take up. In Germany, when it comes to integration of refugees, we've been doing quite well. We have developed the so-called Kiel house model because Schleswig-Holstein was in the lead in this respect. It's a type of house that can first be used as accommodation for refugees, but can then be converted into a residential building. And it offers bricks offer a great advantage there because they give you flexibility and also durability. So we expect to gain market shares in Germany there. Any further questions? This is not the case, so thank you very much for joining us this morning. Before we conclude, I'd like to invite you to our Capital Markets Day on the 15th of September in Graz, in Austria. The topics are the group strategy, the outlook, and the clay building materials Europe division, including Eastern Europe. The integration of Tondach will be presented in detail. There will be a plant tour at Tondach Kleinstetten in southern Styria. That is the headquarters of Kleinstetten. You can look at a clay block plant and a roof tile plant there. So if you want to register for that, please contact the investor relations team. Thank you very much.